Okay, welcome back to the realm of history. Today, I'm doing this just during my break here. I'm going to keep it really quick, but my second hour got cut short and my third hour missed the entire day. So I'm making this video mostly for those classes. And one of the things that I wanted to share is some of the key terms that I selected to go over, and then just a few tips at the end. And also, since you're not in class, I'm going to go over the key format for the quiz tomorrow as well so that you have something to go off of. So the first term that I want to cover today is the Treaty of Verdun. The Treaty of Verdun essentially ended fighting that took place between the sons of Louis the Pious. Louis the Pious, or Louis the Pious, was Charlemagne's son, and instead of passing his throne down to his oldest son, he made the mistake of passing it down to his three sons. They fought over it in a civil war. The Treaty of Verdun was signed in 843, which ended that fighting. It ended the civil war by dividing the land to the three sons, and it created three separate independent kingdoms of what was once the Frankish kingdom. So it certainly weakened the kingdom of the Franks. The next key term is a feudal term. It's called a fief. A fief is a grant of land from a lord to a vassal, or it could be from a lord to a knight, could be from the king to the lord. So fief is just a grant of land during the feudal time period. The lord is the landowner. He's the person who owns the land, and then the lord would then disseminate the land how he saw fit to knights or serfs. So lords were the landowners. The next term is vassal. Vassals are those that receive the land from the lord. So one of the key things that you want to know as far as feudalism is who owns the land, who's granting the land, who's receiving the land. The receiver of the land is a vassal. The next term that I was going over in class, so this is for those of you who weren't able to be in class, is the term tithe. A tithe is a church tax. It's basically 10% of your income that goes directly to the church. Next is a manor. The term manor is referred to as the Lord's estate. It's the land that the Lord owns, or is the land that the Lord was granted by the king. Usually they're about a few square miles. They generally have a village on it where the serfs would live. They usually have a church, so on and so forth. Next is the term tournaments. This came from our section on chivalry and knighthood. Tournaments are like mock battles where knights would practice against each other. They're very dangerous, and a lot of knights got injured or sometimes even killed in the tournaments. Next is the term Holy Roman Empire. This is sort of a combination between the church and the state. So the areas of Germany, the areas of Italy kind of combined in the Holy Roman Empire. So they had the kingdoms, the empires, but also the church involved there too. So that's what the Holy Roman Empire is kind of referring to. Next is canon law. Canon law is another way to refer to church law. These are like rules and regulations that occur regarding marriage or religious practices. The next term is lay investiture. Lay investiture is basically a problem that happened where instead of the popes appointing bishops, it was going to be the lords and the kings appointing bishops. The pope is supposed to appoint the bishop. So this became a major problem in the church because you had basically lords and kings kind of appointing their friends, and then they could kind of control their friends as the bishop as to what to say to the people, what money to collect, where does the money go. So this led to a lot of corruption within the church. Okay, there's two ways that the pope could kind of like express his power during the Middle Ages. One was called the interdict. The interdict is basically where the pope banishes sacraments from being administered in an entire kingdom. So let's say that the king challenges the pope. The pope can turn around and say, all right, well, nobody in your entire kingdom can be married in the church. Nobody can get first communion in the church. So what this does is it causes the people to become angry. They're like, whoa, we can't get our sacraments. That means we're not going to be able to go to heaven. Whose fault is this? It's the king's fault. And so then they want to overthrow the king, or they start to protest, and the king says, all right. And he goes to the pope and asks for forgiveness or try to make amends there. Next is the term excommunication. Excommunication is another power play that the Pope had. This is basically like removing someone from the church. It's like not allowing them to receive the sacraments in the church. A lot of people have asked me, well, Mr. Langle, how did they know who was excommunicated? Usually excommunication was very rare, but it was kind of set aside for important people that everybody knew. Your common Joe is not, and Jane, they're generally not going to get excommunicated, but more people who are well-known, famous people, kings, princes, things of that nature, if they got excommunicated, everybody kind of knew who they were. So they couldn't go to church and receive sacraments. Could they attend church? Yes. They're not like not allowed to go to church. It's that they can't receive the sacraments. They can't take communion. They can't get married in the church, so on and so forth. Okay, I did want to talk quickly about some AP tips. I put them on your review sheet. So if you missed my class today, this is why I'm doing this. A couple of important things to know from the AMSCO reading, topic 1.6. The first one is feudalism and the manorial system in Europe. So you want to know like the feudal pyramid, what is the manor system, what went on a manor, so on and so forth. Everything that was talked about that in the AMSCO reading. Then you want to know about the bubonic plague. You want to know how it spread. You want to know some ideas. This is kind of review from chapter 12 and the AMSCO reading from last time, but it will play a part in your prior knowledge on the AP SAQ. The topic of the AP SAQ was one that was covered in the AMSCO, and that was anti-Semitism in Europe. Anti-Semitism is prejudice toward the Jewish population. So the SAQ is going to talk about both the plague and anti-Semitism taking place in Europe. And so that's going to be something that you need to focus on if you want to do well on the SAQ question. Finally, for this very brief review, and this is really just for my second and third hour classes that weren't able to be in class the full time today. The other classes, I'll talk about these things in class, but the quiz format on the content part is going to be 40 questions, and they're going to be mostly multiple choice, but there will be one section of matching. So once again, 40 questions, mostly multiple choice, one section of matching. Then you also, on the AP portion, the AP portion is going to be one set of MCQ. So 3 MCQ based on one stimulus, SAQ, which has, as you know, part A, part B, and part C based on a stimulus. So that's going to be the format. And I wish you guys luck. If you have any questions, if you weren't in my class, you can always feel free to contact me by email. This video should post right away. So hopefully you're able to access it on YouTube. Thanks for joining and have a wonderful day.